In 1884, Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Wirt Winchester, arrived in San Jose, California. She was a wealthy woman, inheriting a vast fortune from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. However, Sarah was also a troubled soul, haunted by the deaths caused by the rifle her husband's company had created. Sarah believed she was cursed. A medium had told her that the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles were seeking vengeance. To escape their wrath, the medium advised her to move west and build a house for the spirits. Sarah took this advice to heart and purchased a large, unfinished farmhouse in San Jose. Construction on the house began immediately and never stopped. Sarah hired workers to build the house around the clock, 7 days a week. There was no master plan, and Sarah herself directed the construction. She added rooms, staircases, and doors that led nowhere. Hallways twisted and turned, creating a confusing maze. Visitors who came to see the house were baffled by its odd design. Stairs led to ceilings, doors opened onto walls, and windows looked into other rooms. Some said the house was a reflection of Sarah's troubled mind. Others believed she was trying to confuse the spirits that haunted her. As the house grew, so did the rumors. People whispered about the strange happenings inside. Workers reported hearing ghostly whispers and seeing shadowy figures. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in odd places. Some said the house was alive, changing and shifting on its own. One summer evening, a group of friends decided to visit the Winchester Mystery House. Clara, James, Maria, and David had heard the stories and wanted to see the mansion for themselves. They were intrigued by the tales of ghosts and curious about the eccentric widow who built it. As they approached the house, they were struck by its size and odd architecture. It loomed large and imposing, with turrets, towers, and balconies jutting out at odd angles. The friends felt a chill as they walked up the winding path to the front door. Inside, they were greeted by a tour guide who led them through the winding corridors and confusing rooms. Clara took notes, fascinated by the house's strange design. James, a detective, looked for any signs of foul play. Maria, a nurse, felt a sense of unease and kept close to the group. David, a musician, was captivated by the house's eerie atmosphere. As they moved deeper into the house, the air grew colder. The guide showed them rooms that were sealed off and staircases that led to nowhere. They saw doors that opened onto blank walls and windows that looked into other rooms. The house felt like a labyrinth, designed to trap and confuse. In one room, Clara noticed a strange symbol etched into the wall. It looked like a protective charm. She asked the guide about it, who explained that Sarah Winchester had placed these symbols throughout the house to ward off evil spirits. James examined the symbol closely. He felt a strange energy emanating from it. Maria shivered, feeling as if they were being watched. David played a soft tune on his harmonica, trying to lighten the mood. Suddenly they heard a faint whisper. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The friends froze, listening intently. The whisper grew louder, turning into a mournful wail. The guide looked uneasy but continued the tour. As they entered another room, Clara felt a cold hand brush against her arm. She turned quickly, but no one was there. She told the others, who felt a growing sense of dread. James suggested they stick together and stay close to the guide. In the grand ballroom, they saw a large, ornate chandelier swaying gently, even though there was no breeze. The guide explained that many visitors had reported seeing the chandelier move on its own. Some believed it was the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles, making their presence known. Maria felt a sharp pain in her chest. She gasped and clutched her heart. David rushed to her side, concerned. Maria said it felt like someone was squeezing her heart. The guide suggested they leave the ballroom and continue the tour. In the seance room, they learned that Sarah Winchester held nightly seances to communicate with the spirits. She believed they guided her in the design of the house. The room was small and dimly lit, with a round table in the center. Clara felt a strong energy in the room, as if the walls were buzzing with unseen activity. James noticed a hidden door in the corner. He asked the guide about it, who explained that Sarah used it to escape the room if the spirits became too aggressive. The door led to a secret passageway that wound through the house. As they left the seance room, the friends felt a sense of relief. The house seemed to close in around them, its narrow hallways and low ceilings pressing down. They could hear the faint sound of music, like an old piano playing a haunting tune. In the tower, they climbed a narrow staircase that spiraled upwards. At the top, they found a small, dusty room with windows looking out over the estate. The view was breathtaking, but the friends felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. It was as if the house itself was mourning. As they descended, they heard footsteps behind them. They turned, but no one was there. The footsteps continued, echoing through the stairwell. Clara felt a cold breath on her neck. She turned again, seeing nothing but shadows. Back on the main floor, they entered the Hall of Fires. It was a long corridor with multiple fireplaces. The guide explained that Sarah believed the heat from the fires would ward off spirits. The friends felt a warmth that was both comforting and eerie. In the garden, they saw the beautiful, sprawling grounds. The guide told them that Sarah spent a lot of time here, seeking solace among the flowers and trees. The friends felt a moment of peace, away from the oppressive atmosphere of the house. As the tour ended, the friends gathered their thoughts. Clara felt she had enough material for an incredible story. James was convinced there was more to uncover about Sarah Winchester's motivations. Maria was relieved to be outside, but still felt the lingering presence of the house. David felt inspired to write a new piece of music, capturing the haunting beauty of the mansion. That night, back at their hotel, the friends shared their experiences. They all agreed that the Winchester Mystery House was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Clara wrote furiously, determined to capture the essence of their visit. James decided to do more research into Sarah Winchester's life. He wanted to understand the true reason behind her relentless construction. Maria reflected on the pain and suffering she felt in the house. She believed that Sarah was genuinely trying to make amends for the lives lost to the Winchester rifle. David composed a haunting melody on his harmonica, inspired by the eerie music they had heard. He played softly, the notes filling the room with a sense of melancholy and mystery. In the days that followed, Clara's article was published. It captured the imagination of readers, who were both fascinated and terrified by the Winchester Mystery House. The story of Sarah Winchester and her labyrinthine mansion became a topic of much discussion and speculation. James uncovered more about Sarah's life. He found letters and documents that shed light on her mental state and her deep belief in the supernatural. He shared his findings with Clara, who used them to write a follow-up article. Maria continued her work as a nurse, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She often thought about the spirits Sarah Winchester tried to appease. She started volunteering at a local shelter, feeling a need to give back and help those in need. David's music gained a new depth. His haunting melodies resonated with audiences, capturing the mystery and sorrow of the Winchester Mystery House. He performed in local venues, sharing the story through his music. The friends stayed in touch, bonded by their shared experience. They often reminisced about their visit to the Winchester Mystery House. They knew they had encountered something extraordinary, something that would stay with them forever. The Winchester Mystery House remains a place of intrigue and mystery. Visitors continue to report ghostly encounters and unsettling visions. The house, with its endless rooms and maze-like corridors, stands as a testament to one woman's attempt to escape the ghosts of her past. Sarah Winchester's legacy lives on, her story entwined with the spirits she sought to appease. The friends' journey into her world revealed the power of belief and the lingering presence of those we have lost. The Winchester Mystery House is more than just a building. It is a portal to a past filled with sorrow, redemption, and unanswered questions. In December 1975, George and Kathy Lutz moved into their new home in Amityville, New York. The house was large and beautiful, perfect for their family. They were excited to start fresh with their 3 children. The house had a dark past. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had murdered his entire family there. He claimed he was possessed by evil spirits. The Lutz family knew about the murders but didn't believe in ghosts. On the first night, strange things began to happen. The temperature dropped suddenly. The family felt cold spots in certain rooms. Doors opened and closed by themselves. George dismissed it as drafts and old house quirks. As days passed, the paranormal activity increased. Kathy noticed foul odors that came and went. She heard voices whispering her name. The children complained of nightmares and seeing shadowy figures. George became obsessed with the basement. He felt a strange pull to it. He spent hours there, staring at the walls. He heard drumming sounds and felt a cold presence watching him. He also became irritable and short-tempered. The family dog, Harry, refused to go near the basement. He barked and growled at something unseen. One night, George heard a loud bang from the basement. He rushed down and found a room he hadn't noticed before. It was small and painted red. He felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Kathy experienced physical attacks. She felt invisible hands touching her and woke up with scratches and bruises. She saw faces in the windows and a pair of glowing red eyes staring at her. She started to fear for her family's safety. The children were also affected. Their behavior changed. They became quiet and withdrawn. Missy, their youngest, spoke of a friend named Jody. She described Jody as a pig with glowing red eyes. She said Jody told her they would never leave the house. George and Kathy invited a priest to bless the house. Father Ray arrived, and as he began the blessing, he felt a powerful force. He heard a deep voice telling him to get out. He left abruptly, feeling sick and shaken. He later developed blisters on his hands. The hauntings escalated. Doors slammed shut, and windows opened on their own. The family heard loud bangs and footsteps at all hours. Green slime oozed from the walls and keyholes. Crucifixes turned upside down, and a foul stench filled the air. One night, George woke to the sound of a marching band playing in the living room. He went to investigate but found nothing. Another time, he woke at 3:15 a.m., the same time the DeFeo murders had occurred. He heard screams and gunshots. Kathy had terrifying visions. She saw the DeFeo family lying dead in their beds. She felt an evil presence trying to possess her. She prayed for strength and protection, but the attacks continued. George grew more aggressive. He snapped at his family and isolated himself. He felt an intense anger he couldn't explain. He even considered harming his loved ones. The house seemed to be driving him mad. The family decided they had to leave. They packed their belongings quickly, feeling an urgent need to escape. On their last night, they experienced the most terrifying events yet. Doors banged, objects flew across the room, and the walls seemed to close in on them. They fled the house in the middle of the night, leaving most of their belongings behind. They moved in with Kathy's mother, grateful to be alive. They never returned to the Amityville house. The Amityville house still stands. It has new owners, but its dark reputation remains. Visitors claim to feel uneasy near it. Some say they see shadowy figures in the windows. The story of the Amityville horror endures, a chilling reminder of the unknown forces that may lurk in our world. In November 1966, John Klein, a journalist from New York, received a strange call. A friend from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, claimed a bizarre creature had been sighted. Curious, John decided to investigate. John arrived in Point Pleasant on a crisp autumn day. The small town was quiet, but an air of unease hung over it. Locals whispered about a winged creature with glowing red eyes. They called it the Mothman. John's first stop was the police station. He met with Officer Brenda Millard, who had received several reports about the creature. "People are scared," she said. "Some think it's a bad omen." John listened as Brenda described the sightings. The Mothman had been seen near an old TNT factory, a relic from World War II. Most sightings occurred at night. Witnesses reported a creature over 6 feet tall with a wingspan of 10 feet. Its eyes glowed red in the dark. That evening, John drove to the TNT area. The factory was abandoned, its windows broken and walls covered in graffiti. The woods around it were dense and eerie. As night fell, John felt a chill. He heard rustling in the trees and saw glowing red eyes staring at him. Heart pounding, he shone his flashlight, but the eyes vanished. The next day, John visited the local library. He met Mary Mallette, a librarian who had lived in Point Pleasant all her life. She believed the Mothman was connected to an old Native American curse. "This land has a dark history," she said. "Many tragedies have occurred here." John began to notice a pattern. Each sighting was followed by strange events. People received mysterious phone calls with eerie static. Pets went missing. Electrical appliances malfunctioned without reason. John's investigation led him to a local historian, Richard Anderson. Richard believed the Mothman was a harbinger of disaster. In 1907, a bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, killing dozens, Richard explained. Some say a creature was seen before the tragedy. John's skepticism began to waver. He interviewed more witnesses, each with chilling tales. Linda Scarberry and her husband Roger had seen the Mothman up close. "It chased our car," Linda said, trembling. "We were driving over 100 miles per hour, and it kept up with us." John also met a recluse named George Hatcher. George lived alone in a cabin near the woods. He claimed to have seen the Mothman multiple times. "It's not just a creature," George warned. "It's something more, something evil." As John dug deeper, he discovered a connection to the Silver Bridge. The bridge, which spanned the Ohio River, was a vital link between Point Pleasant and Ohio. John found old newspaper clippings about structural concerns and maintenance issues. On December 15, 1967, disaster struck. John was on the phone with Mary when he heard a loud crash. The Silver Bridge had collapsed during rush hour, sending cars and people into the icy waters below. 46 people died. The town was in shock. Amid the chaos, John remembered George's warning. He rushed to George's cabin but found it empty. George had vanished without a trace. John couldn't shake the feeling that the Mothman had something to do with the bridge collapse. He reviewed his notes and found a disturbing pattern. Sightings and strange events had intensified before the disaster. Determined to find answers, John continued his investigation. He uncovered more eerie details. Some victims of the bridge collapse had reported seeing the Mothman days before the tragedy. Others had experienced vivid nightmares and premonitions. One evening, John received an anonymous tip. The caller claimed to know the truth about the Mothman. They arranged to meet at an old church on the outskirts of town. John arrived at the church, its doors creaking in the wind. Inside, he found a hooded figure. The figure revealed themselves as Alex Keel, a scientist who had been studying the Mothman for years. Alex believed the creature was an interdimensional being. "It's not of this world," Alex said. "It appears before disasters to warn us." John was skeptical but intrigued. Alex showed him detailed notes and sketches. The Mothman had been sighted before other tragedies around the world: earthquakes, floods, and even the Chernobyl disaster. As John absorbed this information, Alex warned him of another looming disaster. "The sightings haven't stopped," Alex said. "Something else is coming." John felt a sense of dread. He spent the next few weeks on edge, waiting for another catastrophe. He noticed a rise in Mothman sightings and strange occurrences. People were frightened, and the town was tense. One night, John had a vivid dream. He saw the Mothman perched on a tower, its eyes glowing red. Below, people screamed as fire and destruction spread. He woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing. John decided to leave Point Pleasant. He had uncovered enough to write his story, but felt an overwhelming sense of unease. As he drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror and saw a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes watching him. Years later, John published his book, The Mothman Prophecies. It became a sensation, sparking debates and theories. Some believed the Mothman was a guardian, others a harbinger of doom. John never returned to Point Pleasant, but the memories haunted him. He often wondered if the Mothman was still out there, watching and waiting. The mystery remained unsolved, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in the shadow.